Does HR have the right to retain everything that the HR has collected for any purpose? Obviously not. There has to be a limit for many reasons: legal, compliance, and from cost optimization for within the organization. Welcome to my YouTube channel where you daily see new content on data privacy. And today we are going to talk about the limitations that HR has to follow for various reasons and not keep retaining every collected data forever. Ideally, no collected data forever. So, what is the data retention thing when we talk about in with respect to HR? HR collects a lot of information, by the way. From the candidates, they submit their resumes. From the appointment letter time, they need the extra details slightly beyond resume, slightly beyond name and address and phone number, right? And the moment the candidate joins and keeps working with the organization, they need a lot of information. This includes banking information, provident fund information, general financial health, physical health information, performance, past skill sets, improvements in skill sets, changes in performance, any updates in healthcare. So there's a lot of personal information. Biometrics, we've discussed so many of them in the last 4 or 5 days, right? So they need to define for how long do they want to store this information. One interesting thing with HR is that the information they have is dynamic, right? You reject a candidate today and he comes up, applies again next year. There has to be a change in his skill sets and his job experience. Job experience, ideally, yes, because if he hasn't been in a job for last 1 year and was rejected from your job also 1 year back, then the chances of him getting selected again are less. However, if skill set has improved, you might consider that as well, right? You need to define a policy for how long are you going to store any kind of data that you have collected, or when do you want to archive them, so that at least you handle the storage cost for your organization, and when do you finally want to delete that data, right? While a candidate has joined and actually become an employee for your organization, who has the access to his data? Even when he has left the organization, who is able to access the data of the ex-employees? So you need to create a policy, and in that policy you need to also define what is the reason you are storing his information despite him have left the organization. What are the legal reasons? What are the operational reasons? Why does this matter? We talk a lot about law, compliance. Yes, there are labor laws, there are privacy laws. You can't have someone's personal information forever. But there are security issues. You are spending security investments to secure data that is old. Might have changed also, but you are securing it with you. Might not be of any use to you, might not be of any use to them themselves, but you are still securing it. Old data is out of mind. When I say out of mind here, I'm talking of shadowed data. Data parked outside the key domain area of the IT's maintenance. Therefore, you have more risk of getting a breach happening from that data, which is shadow data, which is just a copy not visible to the IT. You reduce the operational efficiency. The more data, the less optimization, more challenges. And about employee trust and about dynamic data, like I've been saying so many times, it's dynamic, it will change every day. What are the legal requirements? The legal requirements, well, GDPR says you need to take care of your storage limitation, not longer than necessary. You cannot store it beyond its requirement. So you should do a regular review, you should secure deletion. Maybe your HRMS should have an automatic provision that you mark this person gone, and your policy says this data is required to for me live for only 6 months. Then it gets archived and it stays with me for only 2 years. So after 2 years, it gets automatically purged, right? But if there are manual things or not or beyond automated software, then also you should do regular review. And within HRMS also you should do reviews and audits to see whether the data is there or whether it has actually been deleted. Right? Compliances say purpose limitation. What is the purpose when the employee has already exited? What is the purpose when someone has already been rejected? Either define it or define a policy to remove their data. DPDP also says data minimization and purpose limitation. Delete all personal information once the purpose is fulfilled, or when the concerned person has withdrawn his consent. You remove the data. That's what DPDP Act says. All other regulations also mandate organizations to have clear retention policies. As a best practice for retaining HR data, classify the HR data. It's a very easy process as it looks like when it comes to HR data. Resumes belonging to rejected candidates, belonging to candidates that were offered job but did not join, belonging to candidates who joined, worked for a period of time, got promoted, performance reviews, bonuses, anything offered, provident fund reviews, tax reviews, healthcare records, healthcare reviews. If you are doing regular healthcare assessment for your employees every year, insurance data, financial data, classify them, and according to that classification, you define the retention periods. For example, someone works for you for 20 years. Do you need his health record of 20 year back, or do you need his last 1 or 2 years health record? The idea of having health record is to know about his health. But you're not a hospital, right? So you don't need his 20 years health record. Automate your HRMS softwares for deletion. Share your retention policy in privacy notices. Employees should know till when are you retaining their personal information. Maintain an audit trail of collecting consents as well as deleting or archiving data, and train your HR teams very well on how they should handle the data that belongs to the employees and to the uh, rejected candidates kind of a thing, candidate kind of a thing, right? As a step forward, we should look at some of the common mistakes that people do, and you should avoid them. You're keeping rejected candidates record forever. Dumping. Something again like shadow data. A folder with candidates who were rejected, parked somewhere for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. Now the new HR and the new IT says we don't know what it is, so we don't know whether we should delete it also or not. And that's get breached. Privacy gone. You don't delete their PIIs, personally identifiable information, of the exited employees. There's no proper policy, nothing documented, nothing known, nothing published. And there's a single policy for all data types. For someone who has got rejected, the resume has X value. For someone who is working at a very basic level, the resume has Y value. For someone who is working at a CXO level, the resume has a different value. For someone who has worked for 6 months, for someone who has worked for 10 years, the information about that person has different value. Outdated generic timelines, not acceptable. So there has to be a strict policy that has to be followed and reviewed regularly. It would be good if HR do that themselves, or if you're large enough to have a complete privacy team, take their help, set up your privacy notices, set up your retention policies. Need my help? Let me know. My information is there in the description of the video, and ensure that your HR data's compliance as well as safety both are maintained, and your employees fully trust the handling of their personal information by your organization. That's about the HR retention policies. I hope you like the content of the video. Please press the like and the bell icon, subscribe to my channel, and share your feedback in the comment section. Thank you.